Once Upon a Witch's Death, adapted from Sokka's light novel series and animated by EMT², is a fantasy drama streaming on Crunchyroll since April 1, 2025. The series follows Meg Raspberry, a 17-year-old apprentice which cursed to die in a year unless she collects 1,000 tears of joy to create a life seed. Episode 6, An Evening Sky Without Magic, aired on May 7, 2025 and centers on Meg's struggle to bring joy without magic after her mentor, Faust, imposes a ban. I'm intrigued by the episode's introspective shift, but its heavy-handed moralizing and uneven execution leave me questioning its emotional depth, inviting a closer examination. Episode 5 highlighted Meg's growing skill in connecting with others, as she helped Sophie Hader open up and aided a couple collecting tears with ease. Episode 6 takes a reflective turn when Faust, observing Meg's obsession with her quota, forbids her from using magic, forcing her to rely on human empathy. Meg, tasked with helping a grieving seamstress, Clara, struggles without spells but learns to listen, earning tears through genuine care. Faust's cryptic warning about the curse's true cost emerges, while Sophie's support bolsters Meg's resolve. The episode ends with a hint of a new sage, the Witch of Wisdom, stirring future conflict. This transition from magical triumphs to grounded struggles deepens Meg's quest. Episode 6 advances Meg's journey by challenging her reliance on magic, a pivotal shift marked by her hesitant "I can't do this without spells" as she faces Clara's sorrow. A moment I found quietly compelling. Faust's ban and her warning "joy isn't a checklist" reveal the curse's deeper toll on Meg's humanity, resolving her Episode 5 overconfidence while raising questions about the sage's motives, especially with the Witch of Wisdom's tease. The episode fulfills its role by grounding the series' fantastical premise in emotional stakes, aligning with the light novel's focus on personal growth. However, the pacing feels sluggish, lingering on Meg's self-doubt before a rushed resolution, a flaw I noticed in Clara's swift acceptance. I think the magic ban is a bold twist, but I didn't like the abrupt sage hint, which feels like a forced cliffhanger. Meg, Faust, Clara, and Sophie are central. Meg's vulnerable "I'm useless without magic" unveils a fear of inadequacy consistent with her Episode 1 determination, marking growth as she embraces empathy, a shift I found touching. Faust's stern "you're losing yourself" reveals a protective rigor, adding depth to her mentor role, though her limited screen time curbs exploration, a weakness I noted. Clara's soft "you heard me" exposes a lonely resilience, a fresh facet for a one-off character, a nuance I appreciated. Sophie's cheerful "you've got this, Meg" reinforces her loyalty, aligning with her Episode 5 warmth. Their actions fit prior portrayals, but Clara's quick trust feels convenient. I really appreciate Meg's introspection, but I wish Faust's motives were clearer, as her warning feels vague. The episode explores empathy, purpose, and the limits of magic. Meg's non-magical aid to Clara, listening to her grief over a lost child, underscores empathy as a human strength, a theme conveyed through their quiet exchange, resonating with the series' focus on meaningful connections. Faust's ban probes purpose, questioning if Meg's quest sacrifices her soul, a motif I found thought-provoking. The limits of magic emerge as Meg learns joy requires sincerity, tying to the novel's moral core. The didactic tone risks overshadowing these themes, a flaw I noticed in Faust's lecture. I'm moved by the empathy theme, but I personally don't understand why Clara's arc wasn't deeper, which could have sharpened the emotional stakes. The episode subtly expands the magical system by clarifying that tears of joy must stem from genuine emotion, not magical manipulation, building on Episode 2's fairy lore, a detail I found intriguing. The seamstress's shop, cluttered with nostalgic threads, reinforces the world's lived-in charm, while the Witch of Wisdom's mention hints at a sage hierarchy, a concept I anticipate will unfold. However, I didn't like how the sage's role was ambiguous, leaving their threat unclear, a flaw that muddies the world's stakes. The setting feels warmly detailed, but clearer magical rules would anchor its depth. The dialogue is heartfelt but occasionally cliched, with Meg's "I just listened" carrying earnest simplicity, and Clara's "you gave me hope" landing with quiet gratitude. Moments I found affecting. Faust's "magic isn't joy" feels preachy, undermining her gravitas, a flaw I noticed in her brief scene. The writing shines in Meg's introspective moments but falters in heavy-handed moralizing, like the overt empathy lesson, which feels like a novel's prose, a weakness I found distracting. I think the quiet exchanges elevate the arc, but I didn't like the didactic tone, which saps the narrative's subtlety. EMT²'s animation is delicate, with Clara's shop threads glinting in twilight rendered with cozy warmth, a scene I found enchanting, praised for its atmosphere online. The art style, faithful to Core Fuji's novel designs, shines in close-ups, like Meg's hesitant smile, though static crowd shots in the town feel flat, a dip I noticed. Director Atsushi Nigarikawa crafts a reflective mood, with a slow zoom on Clara's trembling hands amplifying her grief, a choice I found poignant. Akiyuki Tateyama's score with Maya Sakamoto's drops and Aoi Teshima's Hanasaki Michida sets a wistful tone with a gentle violin during Meg and Clara's talk enhancing warmth, a touch I found memorable though it echoes typical fantasy OSTs. Sound effects like the clink of sewing needles are crisp, grounding the shop, a detail I liked. The music supports emotional beats, but its familiarity, a flaw I noted, limits distinctiveness. I think the violin adds heart, but a unique score could sharpen the mood. An evening sky without magic evokes warmth, sorrow, and mild frustration. Meg's to Clara, listening to her pain, is heartwarming, a moment I found unforgettable while Faust's warning stirs intrigue, tying to Meg's curse. The preachy tone and rushed resolution temper engagement, a flaw I felt keenly. The episode prompts reflection on empathy as a universal strength, aligning with the series' tender ethos, and its quiet climax lingers. I also anticipate the Witch of Wisdom will challenge Meg's growth. The warmth resonates, but the sermonizing nags. The episode's core philosophical lesson is that true joy stems from human connection, not external tools. Meg's magicless aid and Faust's band suggest that empathy, not spells, forges meaning, a lesson embodied in Clara's tears. This insight invites viewers to consider how sincerity shapes relationships, a profound reflection for navigating purpose in a transient world. Episode 6 of Once Upon a Witch's Death is a tender, introspective chapter that excels in Meg's growth. Aoyama's performance and the empathy theme, weaving a fantasy tale with heartfelt stakes. Its strengths lie in the shop's cozy visuals, Meg's vulnerability, and the series' moral core bolstered by EMT2's warm craft. However, sluggish pacing, preachy writing, and a vague sage tease hinder subtlety, flaws I found limiting. I didn't like the didactic tone, and I think deeper side characters could balance the lesson with nuance. The episode achieves its goal of grounding Meg's quest in human connection but stumbles with heavy-handed execution, making it a touching, imperfect milestone. I'm hopeful for the series, expecting the sages and Meg's curse to elevate its emotional and magical stakes. For fantasy and tearjerker fans, this is a sweet, uneven gem.